Under WWE's dazzling lights, where legends are praised like immortal gods, there were stars who once made the world stand in awe, yet behind that glory lay a chilling truth. Beyond the roaring cheers and thunderous applause, not everyone was the hero they were portrayed to be. Some names, though celebrated icons, carried dark shadows, scandals, violence, addictions, and disturbing behavior that even their peers found unsettling. In today's video, Wrestling Sphere pulls back the glamorous curtain to reveal 13 wrestlers who turned out to be real-life villains. And we begin with someone you might never expect. Number 1. Randy Orton. Randy Orton is now seen as one of WWE's most enduring pillars, a respected veteran both in the locker room and inside the ring. But few know that when he first entered the business, Orton was a nightmare backstage, hot-headed, reckless, and arrogant to the point of intimidating his colleagues. While he never reached the notorious level of figures like New Jack or JBL, young Orton still made people wary because of his unpredictable temper. In his early years, Orton often pulled cruel pranks as a way to assert himself. One infamous story involved him dumping baby oil and sunscreen into staff member Rachel Owen's personal bag, simply because she didn't recognize him. Rumors even claimed he went as far as defecating in her bag. Though never proven, the very existence of such a story shows how unsettling his reputation once was. His temper also spilled over into the media. On one occasion, he slapped a reporter just for asking questions he didn't like. Among colleagues, he was known for humiliating jabs that poisoned the locker room atmosphere whenever he walked in. Former WWE writer Kurt Bauer recalled one disturbing rib. Orton would enter the writer's room, stick his hand down his pants, then extend it for a handshake, saying, "I'm Randy Orton, shake my hand." If someone refused, he'd yell, "Oh, you think you're better than me? Want me to tell Vince and Steph you disrespected Randy Orton?" Childish and disrespectful behavior that no one dared confront at the time. His ego even derailed others' careers. In 2009, WWE planned to elevate Kofi Kingston into the main event scene through a feud with Orton. But during one match, Kofi mistimed a spot and got up too early after a punt kick. Furious, Orton screamed, "Stupid, stupid, stupid," in the middle of the match and hit a stiff RKO outside the script. Afterward, he complained to management, effectively stalling Kofi's push and relegating him to the mid-card for years. A similar incident happened with Mr. Kennedy. During a tag team bout, Kennedy accidentally executed a back body drop that landed Orton awkwardly on his shoulder and neck. Instead of chalking it up to a common in-ring accident, Orton immediately rallied John Cena to complain to management. Within days, Kennedy was fired, ending his WWE career entirely. Of course, people change. Orton himself has admitted he looks back on that time with both shame and gratitude for having overcome it. In a podcast with Logan Paul, Orton confessed, "I was an asshole. I think it was because I wanted respect. I don't know. But I got through it. Watching old footage I didn't even know was recorded, like me at a signing with fans, I thought, oh my god, I was awful. That wasn't confidence, it was armor. I thought being an asshole would earn me respect. Maybe it was fear disguised as respect." He also acknowledged that he was lucky Vince McMahon kept giving him chances to turn things around. Despite fines, suspensions, and forced breaks for his behavior, Vince and veteran mentors repeatedly pulled him back, guiding him toward growth instead of letting him self-destruct. Without that, Orton admits, his career could have ended before it even began. Today, Randy Orton is a completely different man, calmer, wiser, and grateful for what he has. While he can't erase his past, his willingness to face and learn from those youthful mistakes has transformed him into one of WWE's most admirable figures. Number 2. Logan Paul. Logan Paul's place on this list of real-life villains probably surprises no one. He is the very definition of an internet phenomenon. Famous, bold, controversial, and extremely skilled at turning infamy into notoriety. With over 20 million followers, he later shocked many by proving himself to be a gifted athlete in WWE. Blessed with lightning reflexes, great conditioning, and a natural knack for performance, he quickly secured high-profile matches against the company's biggest stars. Yet behind the spotlight lies a history of scandals that once made Logan one of the most hated figures in entertainment. The first major firestorm erupted in 2017 when Logan uploaded a video filmed in Japan's Aokigahara forest, a location tragically associated with suicides. In the footage, He not only captured a deceased body but also laughed and made light of the situation. The video triggered global outrage. Media outlets, celebrities, and fans alike condemned Logan's insensitivity, disrespect, and disregard for human life. YouTube temporarily suspended him from ad programs, brands severed ties, and he became a symbol of moral decay in the influencer world. Though Logan later apologized and removed the video, the stain remained a permanent mark on his career. One would think such a costly lesson might change him, but years later he became embroiled in an even bigger controversy, this time involving the money of hundreds of investors. In 2021, Logan heavily promoted a project called CryptoZoo, an NFT game where players could buy digital eggs, hatch them into unique creatures, and breed them to create valuable hybrids. Logan promised long-term profit, branding the project as a smart investment in the blockchain era. His massive influence drew countless people to invest, convinced this would become the next big trend. But after the money poured in, the project went silent. The game never developed as promised. No updates, no roadmap, no progress. The entire system virtually disappeared. Hundreds were left holding worthless NFTs, unable to sell, play, or recover their money. By 2023, a well-known independent investigator presented evidence that CryptoZoo was a deliberate scam. Reports showed 130 people collectively lost over $4 million to Logan and his team. When the scandal exploded, Logan tried shifting blame onto his developers, claiming they sabotaged the project. Almost no one believed him, as he was the face of the project, the one who promoted it, made the promises, and lured in investors. A class action lawsuit was filed against Logan, accusing him of orchestrating fraud and exploiting his influence for personal gain. The case is still ongoing, but Logan's public image has been severely tarnished. While he continues to wrestle in WWE and win cheers for his in-ring talent, he cannot erase what happened outside the ring. Logan Paul may be a natural athlete and a rising WWE star, but that doesn't change the fact that he once exploited his fame at the expense of people's lives and wallets. His career constantly teeters on the razor's edge between greatness and ruin, and one more misstep could bring it all crashing down. Number 3. The Dynamite Kid. The Dynamite Kid, real name Tom Billington, was once hailed as one of wrestling's greatest innovators. With a fast-paced, hard-hitting, and highly technical style, he inspired an entire generation of wrestlers, many of whom later became legends. But behind the glory stood a very different man, ruthless, volatile, and frightening. Dynamite not only fell into drugs and alcohol but had already shown his violent nature long before addiction took over. In the locker room, Dynamite was infamous for cruel pranks that weren't meant to entertain. Bret Hart recalled that he once slipped sleeping pills into a colleague's drink just to see what would happen. Bruce Pritchard repeatedly criticized his so-called ribs, describing them as malicious rather than playful. With his unpredictable temper and tendency to intimidate, Dynamite caused endless tension, leading many to avoid him backstage. The darkest side of Dynamite, however, came in his personal life. He wasn't just an abusive husband, he terrorized his own family. His ex-wife, Michelle, revealed that once, simply because she refused to drink with him, he forced her to sleep inside a closet as punishment. On another occasion, he deliberately swerved recklessly on the highway, veering toward the shoulder just to terrify her. These weren't momentary bursts of anger but deliberate acts of psychological torment. The horror peaked in 1991, when Dynamite was completely consumed by drugs and alcohol. As Michelle tried to leave with their young child, he snapped, beat her, and grabbed a shotgun, threatening to kill her, despite the fact she was pregnant at the time. All of this happened in front of their children, leaving them traumatized. In the end, Michelle handed him a one-way ticket back to England, finally escaping the abusive marriage and saving herself and the kids. Beyond domestic violence, Dynamite also displayed disturbing behavior elsewhere. Once, he injected steroids into a dog out of sheer curiosity, an act so cruel and senseless it defies explanation. Backstage, he was a notorious bully, frequently tormenting rookies just to feed his ego. Though celebrated as a technical master inside the ring, Dynamite Kid proved that talent can't hide a person's true character. He wasn't just a controversial figure, he was a genuinely vicious man in real life. Number 4. CM Punk. There are plenty of names that could make this list, and Hardcore Holly is often mentioned as a candidate. But one name that frequently gets overlooked is CM Punk. To many fans, Punk is a symbol of defiance, the rebel voice who dared to challenge the system. Yet behind that image, countless people have had unpleasant experiences working with him. For years, rumors circulated that Punk wasn't exactly easy backstage. While most of these stories lacked hard evidence, Kevin Owens once recalled a small incident from 2005, back when he was a rookie. Simply because Owens wore a CM Punk t-shirt, Punk gave him a look of pure disdain. At the time, people brushed it off as arrogance. But once Punk moved to AEW, his true colors became clearer through a series of ego-driven actions that repeatedly threw the locker room into chaos. One of the most shocking moments came when Punk buried Hangman Adam Page live on air, purely out of personal conflict. Some argued that Page went off-script during a promo leading up to Double or Nothing, but that didn't excuse Punk's public retaliation. This wasn't about protecting his image, it was a blatant attempt to humiliate a colleague in front of the world. The tension reached its breaking point after All Out 2022. During the post-show press conference, with Tony Khan sitting right beside him, Punk unleashed a scathing tirade. He took direct aim at Colt Cabana, real name Scott Colton, his former best friend, then turned his fury on AEW's executive vice presidents. He didn't stop there. Punk also blasted Hangman Page and clashed with a reporter he suspected of being Cabana's ally, creating an unbearably tense atmosphere. What began as words soon escalated into a full-blown backstage brawl, leading to suspensions, disciplinary actions, and ultimately Punk's termination. While the full details remain murky, almost everyone agrees Punk was the spark that ignited the entire disaster. CM Punk is undeniably one of the most talented and influential wrestlers of the modern era. But his outsized ego and belief that everything revolved around him often poisoned the environment around him, transforming him from a hero to fans into a nightmare for many of his colleagues. Number 5. The Ultimate Warrior. The Ultimate Warrior was a shining symbol of WWE in the late 80s and early 90s, a colorful, powerful, and electrifying babyface every time he stormed to the ring. But behind the flashy paint was a deeply controversial figure, with countless backstage stories that tarnished his legacy. Inside the ring, Warrior was an unstoppable hero, but outside of it, he often came across as selfish, arrogant, and shockingly lacking in compassion. One of the most infamous incidents was when he ignored a child at a Make-A-Wish event. While stars like John Cena became global icons by granting hundreds of wishes for children, Warrior was exposed by Bret Hitman Hart for refusing to meet a young cancer patient because he was too busy, when in reality, he was just chatting with coworkers in the locker room. That cold dismissal stunned everyone present and left a permanent stain on his reputation among peers. Another ugly story came when Warrior acted extremely rude to a young fan at an airport. Whether the boy had done anything wrong was unclear, but the problem was that his father happened to be an executive for the network airing WWE at the time. The fallout nearly led the station to pull WWE programming, forcing Vince McMahon himself to step in and demand that Warrior record an apology video. Even then, Warrior resisted, taking multiple attempts to get through the apology with a visibly annoyed expression, as if lowering himself was beneath him. What was even more disturbing were Warrior's public rants in the early 2000s. During a lecture at DePaul University, he openly compared same-sex couples to pedophiles in the Catholic Church, a shocking, offensive remark that left the audience in stunned silence. Later, he targeted Heath Ledger after the actor's death, claiming it was a good thing because it removed a negative influence. He never retracted or apologized for such venomous words, cementing his image as bitter and hateful beneath the face paint. The Ultimate Warrior may have left an unforgettable legacy in the ring, but his coldness, arrogance, and hostility made many believe he was never a decent person outside of it. Number 6. JBL. JBL may have been a decorated champion and praised for his microphone skills, but backstage he earned a notorious reputation as one of WWE's biggest bullies. In an already cutthroat environment, JBL not only sought to assert dominance but also humiliated others to satisfy his own ego. Over the years, countless stories surfaced of him mocking, harassing, and tormenting colleagues, turning WWE's locker room into a toxic space whenever he was around. One of the most infamous incidents involved Steve Blackman, a legit tough guy known for his no-nonsense attitude. At an airport, JBL foolishly slapped Blackman on the backside, an act of blatant harassment. Blackman warned him to stop, but JBL pushed further. The result? Blackman snapped and beat him down right there in the terminal, shocking onlookers who couldn't believe the loudmouthed bully was dropped so quickly. The story spread fast in the wrestling world, serving as a warning that not everyone was easy to push around. Perhaps the most disgraceful moment came at One Night Stand 2005 with the Blue Meanie. Meanie had publicly called JBL a bully, and JBL chose to retaliate live on air. Instead of working the scripted match, he unloaded with real punches, splitting Meanie's head open and leaving him needing 12 stitches. The situation escalated to the point where Meanie considered suing both JBL and WWE, but he was later placated with a short-term contract and a staged match where he got a measure of revenge, capped off with a steel chair shot described as echoing around the world. JBL's victim list didn't stop there. He was accused of tormenting the Hardy Boys early in their careers, constantly mocking Mark Henry's appearance, and relentlessly humiliating The Miz during his early WWE days, pushing him to the brink of quitting. JBL was also said to be a key reason Justin Roberts left the company, once got punched in the face by Joey Styles for his behavior, and most controversially, drove announcer Mauro Ranallo to a mental breakdown that forced him out of WWE. While Ranallo never directly confirmed JBL bullied him, numerous former employees have shared their own horror stories of working with him. In the ring, JBL played a masterful villain. Backstage, many believed he didn't need to play a role at all, because in reality, he was already the villain. Number 7. New Jack. Some people are just mean-spirited, but then there was New Jack, a man who came dangerously close to prison multiple times because of violent acts that went far beyond the bounds of wrestling. The former ECW star came out of a bloody, traumatic childhood that shaped the person he became. In his autobiography New Jack, Memoir of a Pro Wrestling Extremist, he revealed that as a child he witnessed his father stab his mother repeatedly right in front of him. Growing up surrounded by violence, New Jack entered the business treating the ring as a place to unleash his rage, and his wrestling persona was almost indistinguishable from who he really was. New Jack's career was a string of blood-soaked scandals that still shock people to this day. One of the most infamous happened in 1996, when he sought revenge on Vic Grimes during a match. Years earlier at Living Dangerously, Grimes accidentally caused New Jack to fall from a high platform, fracturing his skull, damaging his brain, and leaving him nearly deaf in one ear. Instead of forgiving, New Jack held a grudge for years. During their rematch, he deliberately shoved Grimes off a scaffold over 40 feet high, sending him crashing through tables below, a fall that nearly killed him. Later, New Jack even admitted in interviews that his intention was to kill Grimes that night. But that wasn't the only time he turned a wrestling match into a real-life assault. In 2004, at an indie show for the Thunder Wrestling Federation, New Jack shocked the industry by pulling out a knife and repeatedly stabbing William Jason Lane, a rookie wrestler. The reason? Lane had been hitting too stiff, throwing real punches instead of the worked shots wrestlers usually protect each other with. Enraged, New Jack stabbed Lane multiple times in the back and neck while the match was still going on. Lane collapsed and rolled out of the ring, but New Jack chased after him and kept stabbing until others intervened. He was arrested and charged with felony assault. Amazingly, Lane later dropped the charges on the condition that New Jack would train him. Stories like these were far from rare in New Jack's record. He was notorious for being unable to control his temper, always ready to escalate the smallest slight into a bloody attack. Astonishingly, despite his violent history, promoters kept booking him as though the industry was willing to turn a blind eye. New Jack became a symbol of chaos, but also living proof of pro wrestling's darkest side, where a dangerously violent man could thrive in spite of everything he had done. Number 8. Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon wasn't just the mastermind behind WWE's empire, he was also one of the most controversial figures in wrestling history. For decades, bizarre stories surrounded him, from flying into a rage whenever someone sneezed in his presence, to enforcing absurd, unwritten rules on wrestlers, to forcing talent into humiliating skits purely for his own amusement. For Vince, nothing was off-limits if it entertained him, and with near-absolute power in WWE, he never hesitated to do whatever he wanted. But those quirks paled in comparison to the serious allegations that followed him for more than 30 years. In the late 80s and early 90s, WWE was rocked by the Ring Boy scandal, involving accusations of underage sexual abuse among backstage staff. While Vince was never criminally charged, testimony suggested he worked to cover up the scandal to protect the company's image. The shadow of that case haunted WWE for years and set the stage for many more accusations down the line. Vince was also named in numerous sexual harassment and assault cases. One of the most prominent came from Rita Chatterton, WWE's first female referee, who claimed Vince raped her in 1986. Although the statute of limitations prevented it from going to trial, her detailed account shocked the public. Another high-profile accuser was Sable, one of WWE's biggest female stars of the late 90s, who sued the company over a toxic workplace and alleged sexual harassment by top executives. Even people who once worked closely with Vince have spoken about the toxic environment he fostered. Former wrestler Tony Atlas recalled that during his time in WWE, women were almost always victims of abuse of power. According to him, being harassed was practically part of the job if you wanted to survive in Vince's company. What had long been dismissed as rumor finally gained weight when the Wall Street Journal revealed that Vince paid at least $12 million over 16 years to 4 women to keep them silent and avoid lawsuits related to sexual misconduct. Vince, of course, denied wrongdoing, but the financial records and testimony were too detailed to ignore. With decades of accusations, cover-ups, and serious scandals, it's hard to see Vince McMahon merely as a shrewd businessman. To many, he embodies wrestling's darkest reality, where power erased the lines of morality. Number 9. Austin Aries. Austin Aries was once seen as a hidden gem in wrestling, talented, technically sound, and capable of putting on incredible performances. Inside the ring, he had everything it took to be a top star. The only thing that kept him from reaching the very top was himself. For years, whether in TNA or WWE, Aries carried the reputation of being difficult, something he even admitted openly. But some of his actions went far beyond being difficult, putting him firmly in the category of one of wrestling's true jerks. One of his most infamous incidents happened in 2013, during a tag match entrance in TNA with Bobby Roode. Ring announcer Christy Hem accidentally introduced Aries by Roode's name. It was a small mistake, and Hem quickly corrected herself. But Aries wasn't satisfied. He confronted her live on air, then climbed the turnbuckle and shoved his crotch in her face, shocking the audience. The act was crude, degrading, and widely considered public harassment. Aries was forced to apologize and TNA disciplined him, but that stain on his career never went away. Though his career continued, Aries' image never fully recovered. In 2018, at Bound for Glory, he headlined against Johnny Impact in a thrilling match. But at the finish, after Johnny hit his planned winning move, Aries popped right back up, glared at the crowd, and stormed out of the arena. No selling everything, disrespecting his opponent, and torching the entire match. He later claimed it was part of a storyline, but the truth was clear. That night was the end of his run in Impact Wrestling. Things got worse in 2020 when multiple sexual harassment accusations surfaced. No formal charges were filed and Aries denied all claims, but the allegations were enough for major companies to keep their distance. By 2019, Aries had virtually disappeared from big stages, reduced to taking small indie bookings in front of a few dozen fans. He once had everything needed to be a star, but Austin Aries destroyed his own career with ego, arrogance, and reckless behavior. Number 10. Sunny. Sunny was WWE's first true diva, a woman who completely changed how fans saw the role of women in wrestling. When she debuted in 1995, the crowd was instantly captivated by her striking looks, sharp charisma, and natural camera presence. Even without wrestling a single match, she could make arenas explode just by walking to the ring. As a manager, she elevated teams like the Body Donnas and the Smoking Guns, ushering in a new era where women weren't just background figures but spotlight attractions. By 1996, Sunny's name had blown past wrestling. She became the most downloaded woman on the entire internet, surpassing mainstream icons like Pamela Anderson, an almost unthinkable feat for someone from WWE. She appeared on TV, in magazines, and at major events, carrying herself like a Hollywood star. Sunny paved the way for female performers to become mainstream celebrities, not just wrestling personalities. Behind the glamour, though, her personal life was chaos. A love triangle with longtime boyfriend Chris Candido and Shawn Michaels rocked WWE Backstage, making her unpopular with many peers. Rumors of drug use and unprofessional conduct spread in 1997, with wrestlers accusing her of frequent no-shows, disruptive behavior, and constant clashes with stars like Sable. Her reputation with management quickly crumbled, and by 1998, WWE terminated her contract, abruptly ending her golden run. Sunny tried to restart her career in ECW and WCW but never recaptured her spark. After Candido's sudden death in 2005, she spiraled into deeper instability, marked by erratic behavior and repeated legal issues. In 2011, she was shockingly inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, which seemed like a chance for redemption. But just a year later, she was arrested 6 times for domestic violence and violating restraining orders. WWE offered her rehab, but she refused and sank further into self-destruction. By 2016, Sunny turned to the adult film industry, erasing much of her legacy among wrestling fans. Her downfall reached its darkest point in 2022, when she caused a fatal car crash while intoxicated. In November 2023, she was sentenced to 17 years in prison. Once a trailblazer who redefined women's roles in wrestling, Sunny ultimately destroyed everything she built, leaving behind not a proud legacy, but a cautionary tale of how fame and glory can't save a lost soul. Number 11. Alberto Del Rio. Alberto Del Rio was once seen as one of WWE's brightest hopes, a performer with all the tools to become a global icon. When he debuted in 2010, he brought with him the persona of an arrogant Mexican aristocrat, driving luxury cars to the ring with his personal ring announcer Ricardo Rodriguez by his side. With his strong technical foundation, sharp in-ring presence, and almost cocky confidence, Del Rio immediately became a centerpiece. As WWE looked to expand deeper into the Latin market, home to a massive fanbase, the company placed huge bets on him as one of their future cornerstones. In his first few years, Del Rio's rise was meteoric. He won the 2011 Royal Rumble, captured Money in the Bank, and claimed both of WWE's top titles, the WWE Championship and the World Heavyweight Championship, in short order. He headlined feuds with John Cena, CM Punk, and Randy Orton, becoming a major player during one of the most turbulent eras of the 2010s. It seemed everything was in place for him to reach legendary status. But behind the polished exterior was a volatile temperament and an ego that proved difficult to contain. In 2014, Del Rio was shockingly fired after slapping a backstage employee accused of making a racist remark. While some defended him, WWE enforced strict discipline to protect its image. Just a year later, however, Del Rio was re-signed and made a huge splash by defeating John Cena for the United States Championship, stunning fans and media alike. Unfortunately, that return marked the beginning of a downward spiral. Del Rio was soon slotted into the forgettable League of Nations stable, which quickly fizzled out. From a world champion, he faded into irrelevance, losing the aura of a main event star. His turbulent relationship with Paige only added more fuel to the chaos, as the two frequently made headlines with public arguments, social media spats, and backstage distractions WWE struggled to handle. By 2016, after violating the company's wellness policy, believed to involve banned substances, Del Rio quietly parted ways with WWE, closing the book on what had once been a promising run. But the real scandal hit in 2020, when he was arrested on charges of kidnapping and sexual assault involving an ex-girlfriend. Though the charges were later dropped, his reputation was permanently destroyed. WWE remained completely silent, which spoke volumes. Alberto Del Rio was erased from all plans, programs, and any chance of returning. From a celebrated aristocrat to an outcast, Del Rio's story proves how quickly glory can vanish when arrogance and reckless choices take over. Number 12. Jimmy Snuka. Jimmy Superfly Snuka was once one of the biggest icons of wrestling's golden era. Known for his explosive high-risk style, Snuka thrilled audiences with his death-defying leaps from the top rope. Moments that became timeless highlights and inspired generations of wrestlers after him. To fans, he embodied raw passion and fearless intensity, a true superstar of WWE's early years. But when the spotlight dimmed, Snuka's life took a much darker turn. In 1983, he and his girlfriend Nancy Argentino were staying at a Pennsylvania motel after a show. That night, Nancy, only 23 years old, was found unconscious and later died from traumatic brain injuries. Her body also showed multiple unexplained bruises, leading authorities to suspect the incident was far more than an accident. Snuka was the only one with her at the time, and his conflicting statements deepened the mystery. Yet no charges were filed at the time. The case faded into the background, while Snuka continued performing and remained a beloved WWE figure. For decades, he carried on with his career, celebrated by fans, as Nancy's death lingered as an unresolved shadow. It wasn't until 2015, over 30 years later, that the case was reopened. Snuka, now frail and ailing, was indicted on third-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter charges, sending shockwaves through the wrestling world. But by early 2017, the court ruled he was mentally unfit to stand trial due to severe dementia and declining health. Just weeks later, he passed away at 73 from cancer, leaving behind a legacy forever clouded by scandal. Snuka was once a hero to millions, but the tragedy of 1983 permanently tainted his name. WWE even removed all references to him, and although they later restored his legacy, his image was never the same. His story remains one of wrestling's darkest chapters, where fame and infamy collided, leaving a stain that time could never erase. Number 13. Ric Flair, the legend who destroyed himself. Ric Flair, just the mention of his name commands respect across the wrestling world. An immortal icon, a living symbol of wrestling's golden era. For decades, he embodied extravagance, glamour, and dominance inside the ring. Flair captured nearly every accolade possible. 16-time world champion, the first to complete the Triple Crown in both WCW and WWE, a 2-time WWE Hall of Famer, and the inspiration for countless generations of wrestlers. But behind the sharp suits and sparkling robes was a life filled with chaos, scandals, and controversy, to the point where many of his peers openly avoided him outside the ring. Even at his peak, Flair was notorious for his reckless lifestyle. He spent money recklessly, drowned himself in alcohol, parties, and women, and wore it proudly as part of his nature boy persona. Backstage, he often crossed lines with his behavior and words. He once made racially insensitive remarks toward Teddy Long without facing any punishment. What began as a scripted rivalry with Shane Douglas turned personal when Flair went on live TV and accused Douglas of using steroids, a move seen within the business as outright betrayal. The most damning scandal came in 2002 during the infamous plane ride from hell. Multiple witnesses recalled Flair stripping naked, wearing only his robe, and sexually harassing flight attendant Heidi Doyle, even forcing her to touch him. The case was quietly settled out of court, but insiders like Jim Ross and Tommy Dreamer admitted the incident happened. What shocked many was that Flair faced no real consequences, further damaging his reputation among colleagues. Beyond moral scandals, Flair's life was plagued with legal and financial disasters. He married 4 times, each ending in bitter divorce and leaving him with massive alimony and settlement debts. He was repeatedly arrested for domestic violence, assault, harassment, and reckless driving, stopped by police a staggering 143 times before the year 2000 alone. In 2008, the IRS came after him for hundreds of thousands in unpaid taxes. By 2010, ROH sued him for breach of contract, and the High Spots Company sought his arrest after he failed to repay a loan, one backed by pawning the historic NWA World title belt. From a celebrated legend to a cautionary tale, Ric Flair became someone many in the industry preferred to keep at arm's length. His indulgence, impulsiveness, and irresponsibility turned him from a shining role model into a stark reminder: glory means nothing if you lose yourself chasing it. And those were 13 wrestlers who turned out to be real-life villains, the dark sides few dare to mention in the world of WWE. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like, subscribe to Wrestling Sphere, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next shocking stories.